and doing another Facebook Live. Today we are talking about a topic: can clothes be spiritual? There's no such thing as spiritual clothes. That was one of the comments that I had recently. And related to that topic, I would like to share 5 ways that advantages, 5 good reasons why you should wear Hare Krishna clothes. Alright, so first of all, let me just have a look at this comment. I'll read it to you so you can see what you think. So I apologise for no Facebook Live yesterday. I was having a hard time getting the lights to work because it was a little late, and I finally decided, look, I'll call it quits and I'll have a go tomorrow. You can see maybe the light's not perfect yet today either. So tomorrow I'll try to get outside. I'm actually, I found an old iPad, so I think this will be better than my laptop. And we'll be able to get outside in the garden, which I prefer way more. Back to the topic. So this is Gabriel Leavitt, and he is saying here, in the Gita, there is no mention of clothing in the mode of goodness. Prabhupada is quoted as saying, "I never said, now you put on dhoti." In India, where dhotis are from, they are just clothes. Only in the Hare Krishna community are dhoti and sari considered spiritual, or clothes in the mode of goodness. Who knows? Maybe I have a bad Gita. That's what he's saying. And just prior to that, he had said that there's no such thing as spiritual clothes. So this is an interesting topic, and my reaction to that is to think about the Bhagavad Gita and what does it say. It certainly has food in the mode of 3 modes of nature, and it describes many different things in the modes of nature, charity in the mode of nature, and so on. So I was thinking of an example that perhaps music in the mode of in the modes of nature. I don't believe that that's described in the Bhagavad Gita either. In the Bhagavad Gita, it talks about different things in the mode of 3 modes of nature, but not music. However, thinking about it, music is something that influences us a lot. So even though it's not mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, does that mean that there's no such thing as music in the 3 modes of nature? I think there is. And I'm sure you might have a similar experience to me, that depending on the kind of music that you listen to, it invokes different feelings and different reactions. You know, very simply, there's some music you listen to, it makes you angry. Some music that you listen to, it makes you just feel very peaceful. Some music that you listen to, it makes you feel very lusty. You know, it has that desired effect. That's why they play it in the nightclubs. You know, boom, boom, boom. A certain energy that comes with it. So I think, therefore, that just because it's not described in the Bhagavad Gita, that, you know, the clothes and different modes of nature, let's analyse. Are different types of clothes, do they have a different influence on us? And I think, again, we can say yes. I think, in particular, there's 2 elements which are at play here. The first one is cleanliness. If someone is not clean, then it's the mode of ignorance. So there's clothes that are clean or not clean. So this is clothes in different modes of nature. There's also the effect of lustiness. You know, like, what would we call this? There's a word for it, isn't there? Chaste clothes, modest clothes, clothes that do not invoke lustiness from others. You know, so particularly men are very visually stimulated. So if a woman is walking around with a very low-cut top, or clothes that really draw the attention to the sexual features of that woman, then this is certainly what I would not call it clothes in the mode of goodness. I would call this clothes in the mode of passion, because it's invoking the passionate feelings. So I think this is an example that by analysis we can see that there are different categories of clothes according to the modes of nature, and ultimately the point that we should consider is coming to the original point about spiritual, can clothes be spiritual? Everything can be spiritual. Just like food, maybe in the different modes of nature, but when it's offered to Krishna and comes in connection with Krishna, it becomes spiritual. Anything that was used by Krishna is considered spiritual. Anything that's used in the service of the Lord, the flowers that are offered to the Lord, is considered prasadam, it's considered spiritual. So in the same way, if we have clothes that help us to think of Krishna, that we use in the service of Krishna, they become spiritual. So, for example, if we have, I'll just take a practical example. With regular clothes, you put on your jeans and you put on your t-shirt, or your suit and tie, more formal gear. If someone looks at you, are they likely to think of Krishna? I think that I'll actually make a meme or a picture to put on Facebook to illustrate this. We will have a picture of one person wearing a suit and one person wearing a dhoti, and we'll say, which one reminds you of Krishna? Yeah. So in that sense, we can say that clothes can be spiritual if they're used to serve Krishna. If we see clothes that it reminds us of Krishna, then that's called spiritual clothes. It's spiritualizing a material thing. Now, in this comment, which has just disappeared off my screen here, if we can get it back, let's see. He was mentioning that in India, they don't call dhoti and kurta or sari as spiritual clothes. They're just called clothes, and that may be true. Or it may have been true in the past. And this is the point. For us in the West, it's even more valuable to wear the Hare Krishna clothes because they're different. And we specifically know that, I'm wearing these clothes. They're not the normal clothes that everyone else wears. And I'm doing it for a reason. I'm doing it, and I'll get into the advantages of wearing Hare Krishna clothes in a second. I've got a list of 5 different reasons. But it's that uniqueness that adds a lot of the impact of this type of clothes. It's not the clothes of themselves that really has the value, but the fact that they're different and the fact that it can remind us of Krishna is very powerful. So, this comment is made here. And even in India, I mean, I've lived in India. Most of the men wear pants. Most of the ladies wear saris. So for the women, maybe not so much, but for the men, if a man sees someone wearing a sari, yeah, definitely, that'll grab attention. If someone sees a man wearing a dhoti, that's like a statement. In Gandhi's time, Gandhi's followers would wear dhotis made out of khadi as a protest against the British, instead of wearing pants and going along with the whole British culture and everything it stood for. So clothes can make a statement, and they can influence us. So in India, if a man is wearing a dhoti, and especially if there's a white man in India wearing a dhoti, then wow, that'll definitely have an impact. Or a white lady wearing a sari in India, people will notice that. But yeah, it could be true that if Indian ladies usually wear saris and you're already wearing a sari, maybe it won't make that much difference. But by putting on tilak, then we may be wearing the same clothes, but we're identifying ourselves as a Vaishnava, follower of Lord Chaitanya. So there's just a few thoughts there, that if we want to talk about clothes, then in India or places where everyone wears a dhoti, maybe there's not some of the advantages that I'll be speaking about, but certainly in the West, the fact that a dhoti is a unique type of dress has advantages. Alright, let me just have a look through my notes here. Let me read another comment here before I continue on. So, Adwaita Sima from Christchurch has written, interesting topic. Personally, I prefer wearing Vaishnava dress whenever possible, because I feel it assists me in remembering Krishna. Good point. And I just like it. There is, however, a time and place for everything. Some devotee advocates of Western dress say that toning the cultural presentation down allows them to access people who otherwise wouldn't be willing to listen. What do you think of this idea? So, I agree that there's a time and place for everything. So what I might do is, just before I answer that question, I'll just jump to my notes. And according to my limited point of view, here's a few reasons why I think that sometimes it may not be a good idea to wear the Hare Krishna clothes like dhoti and so on. First is safety. I was sharing some of these ideas on the Successful Vaishnava's Facebook page, and one devotee from England was telling me that she prefers to not wear tilak in particular, and I think also she doesn't wear the classic Hare Krishna clothes, because there's actually, unfortunately, some racist people out there, if that's the right word, or religious fanatics who single out devotees, and particularly women, and treat them badly. And so, unfortunately, in some cases, this may be required to dress the way other people are dressing so that you don't stand out for safety reasons. In particular, in the old days when devotees first went to China, or Middle East, or Russia, it was very dangerous. You couldn't just go into the country wearing a dhoti and a kurta. In fact, even today in Singapore, if you try to go into the country wearing Hare Krishna clothes, they won't let you in, because they consider Hare Krishna to be a cult or something. Even to the point where I remember back in the late 90s, there was one boy coming from Vrindavan Gurukul, and he was wearing yellow dhoti and kurta, and his grandmother was bringing him back, and she was wearing a white sari. They wouldn't let them into Singapore because of the clothes they were wearing. I think they were just in transit, so it wasn't a big problem, but this is what it's like in some countries where they're really opposed to Krishna consciousness movement, or religion in general, or they might be really strict about their own religion and they don't want to support any other religion. So in those cases, it can be dangerous. So naturally, it would be foolish to wear, Hare Krishna clothes and stand out from the crowd when you're trying to go in with a stealth mission. In the same way, trying to distribute books, sometimes it's advantageous to blend in. And that way you'll be able to, perhaps go into some offices and distribute books, which otherwise wouldn't be possible. So certainly there are some reasons from a safety point of view. Also from physical safety point of view, on in very harsh weather, it may be a lot more practical to wear other clothes. And for certain activities, other clothes may be a lot more practical and safer. So that's one thing. Now the next thing was about rapport. And this is what Advaita Singha is speaking about. That by dressing like in a similar way to somebody else, they'll feel that you're one of them. And it's a principle of communication, that by building rapport with people, it aids in the communication. So there may be validity in this principle. And it's the same principle again, as I was saying, like if someone's distributing books, on the street, perhaps people will be more inclined to stop if they meet someone who's dressed in a similar way to them. It looks, and going a little bit beyond that, even someone at a similar age and so on, makes it easier. And also, like I was saying, if you're going into an office or something where there's a standard type of dress, and if you dress differently, they may not be so favourable to allow you in. However, I personally feel that these things are basically superficial. I mean, I've had my experience dressing in Hare Krishna clothes and dressing not in Hare Krishna clothes, and speaking about Krishna consciousness and Krishna conscious philosophy. And my experience is that initially people might notice your clothes, But very quickly, what they notice more is who you are, what your character is like, how you're behaving, how you treat people, your way of being, your vibration. This is way, way, way more important than the clothes that you wear. So in terms of building rapport with someone may be wearing Hare Krishna clothes, and it may be a foreign dress, but if someone is very effulgent and cheerful and happy and comes up, sometimes people, they don't even notice the clothes. There's a saying that who you are is speaking so loudly, I can't hear what you're saying. Stephen Covey quotes this one sometimes. I saw Mochakunda's there, Haribol Prabhu, and Dhruva Prabhu, nice to see you. So we talked about Stephen Covey, which we might just touch on again as well. I'll backtrack to that in a second, but I'll just continue on with this part of the program. So the idea here is that, yes, initially there may be a superficial benefit in dressing the way that other people are, to make them feel comfortable so that you can begin a conversation with them. But I personally feel very strongly that the most important thing is the way that we treat people and the type of character and communication that we have with people is way more important than the clothes that we wear. And it's kind of ironic because sometimes people say, oh, clothes are superficial, so why do you care about clothes? Let's not wear a dhoti and a kurta. So, but then they might also argue at the same time that it helps us to communicate with people. So there's that quote from Prabhupada, which I've shared on the page somewhere. Where Prabhupada said, well, if it's superficial, why are you worried about superficial people? If you just present things as they are, the serious people will listen to it regardless of how you're dressing. So I think that's an important point. And the point I really want to emphasize, it's not just what you say, but also the type of personality and the way that you treat people, the relationship that you develop towards people. So I'll just refer back to my notes here. So I think that there can be some advantages from a point of view of rapport, but I think more important is how we treat people. So finally is socially appropriate, and this backtracks a little bit to the example where the book distributor is going to an office and wants to distribute books there. If you're wearing clothes that are totally out of the culture of that place, then they just won't let you in. I know I had an experience myself where when my father passed away, there was a memorial service, and they were holding it at a club, and they had a very strict dress code that everyone had to wear a suit and tie and so on. And if I were to turn up in my dhoti and kurta, it would have just been so out of rapport, and so they would have considered it disrespectful for their culture, that I chose to, borrow a suit and tie. It's actually my father's one that he had from before. And then I was able to, go in there and not disturb people. So although we might say that it's superficial, how you dress, sometimes we need to respect, people's sensitivities to allow them to be able to hear. So it's not a definitive answer, as Advaita Singha was mentioning, and I'm sure he, understands that point as well. I'm not going to say that it has to be this way or that way. There's a time and place for everything, as Advaita Singha Prabhu you mentioned. And so I agree with you that there are times and places where dhoti and kurta may not be appropriate. So just to recap, the 3 reasons why I personally feel it can be beneficial not to wear unusual clothes, let's put it that way, is from the point of view of safety, that we make ourselves stand out for people that may be envious, or if we're in a country which does not support the Krishna consciousness movement. 2 is building rapport. When we dress in a similar way to people, they're likely to be find it a bit easier to relate to us initially, but more important is the way we treat them. And then finally, socially appropriate. Sometimes it'll just be too much of a shock and too distracting for people, and they may become insulted if we don't respect the cultural norms that they have in terms of dress. Alright, so now we've talked about the reasons why we may choose not to wear Hare Krishna clothes. We can get into the reasons why, and I've got a list of 5 reasons here. Because Mochikunda Prabhu, I think you're still there, or you were there recently, I'll just mention again, going back to the idea of the 3 modes of nature. So Mochikunda Prabhu was asking about the 7 habits of highly effective people, and if anyone had done a comparison of the principles of the 7 habits related to Bhagavad Gita, where they align. And one devotee had written a comment to say, this is mixing karma and jnana with bhakti. That we should just, basically his point is you should just study the Bhagavad Gita and not try to look at anything else. It's perfectly absolute on its own. So I think, again, from my point of view, I would look at it from the point of view of spiritualization, yukta vairagya, and looking at how we can use things that are favourable for Krishna consciousness. I know for myself personally, I have found principles that are taught in the 7 habits of highly successful, highly twisted tongues, in the 7 habits book, particularly things like empathic listening. The principle of really listening to understand from another person's point of view has been such a powerful tool in preaching and in Vaishnava community. So one might think, I'm just going to only read Prabhupada's books, I'm not going to read anything else. But if there are tools that we can use that help us in our Krishna consciousness, I'm all for using them. At the end of the day, our final authority and our final conclusion is we completely depend on Krishna, and our goal is to serve him 100%. And my understanding of jnana and bhakti and karma is it's about our motivation. If our motivation is that we just want to get free from our material life, or we want to free from our sufferings, or we just want to acquire knowledge for the sake of it, certainly that's called jnana. And karma is when we are doing things for our own personal enjoyment. But if we use the work that we do and we offer it to Krishna, that's called karma yoga. And if we use the knowledge that we have and we use that in the service of Krishna, that's called jnana yoga, and that's perfect in terms of bhakti. Bhakti is not rejecting things, it's using things in the service of Krishna. And in this way we can dovetail everything. And so this Yukta Vairagya verse of Rupa Goswami, which says, if someone rejects something that can be used in Krishna's service, that is incomplete renunciation. So I think this applies in the case of something like the 7 habits, where the principles are so universal that if we don't use the principles there in the service of Krishna, then then we're acting in the platform of false renunciation. And if you look at the principles, they're completely aligned with Krishna consciousness. For like empathic listening, if we can say, I don't follow Stephen Covey, I only follow the Bhagavad Gita, and I don't see where it mentions about empathic listening. And that's the whole point of the quote post by Mochikunda Prabhu. He's saying, hey, these principles in the 7 habits, they really make sense. It's common sense. And I'm sure that there's alignment, and we can see. Just taking empathic listening as a point of view. In the Bhagavad Gita, it says that one who understands somebody else from their point of view, who understands their suffering, truly knows that person. Excuse me, I'm not quoting exactly, but these are the kind of things that when you can make the connections, then we don't take this sectarian viewpoint that, I only read the words that come exactly from that page, and we don't use our discrimination to see where the principles of Bhagavad Gita are also being shown through other people's writings. And in that way we can respect people and say, I very much respect that point that you made, because in our Bhagavad Gita it says the same thing. So, enough of a rant on that one. I'm looking forward to Damodar Prabhu, who's a very experienced Stephen Covey trainer, doing a presentation on Bhagavad Gita and the 7 habits. Mochikunda Prabhu, thanks for that, encouraging Damodar Prabhu to do that. That'll be awesome. Alright, getting down to the subject matter of the headline. What is it called? The headline act. We've done the cliff raisers, the curtain raiser. Now we're into the real main match of the night, or the main act of the show. Okay, so 5 reasons. Let's just go through these quickly. Number 1 is curiosity. If you're dressing in a way that's different from everybody else, people will be curious. What's with that person? Why are they dressed differently? And our Hare Krishna clothes are different, especially in the West. We've talked about this already, that it's possible that in some places in India, dressing like that may not be such a curiosity. If a Western person was dressing like an Indian in India, then it's also going to spark curiosity. And if we wear tilak, that in itself, well, it may spark curiosity. Oh, you're wearing this tilak. What does it mean? So curiosity, by being different, we stand out and people take notice. And this is Prabhupada's point in a recent post that I shared. And I also put a picture. I basically just put a picture of ordinary people walking down the road dressed in the usual Western clothes. Now, if any of them was a Hare Krishna, you'll never know, because they were looking the same. But if one person was wearing like a sari, especially if they're a Westerner, or if there's a man wearing a dhoti and a kurta, then people will naturally notice. That guy's different. Wonder what that's all about. Okay, that's curiosity. Number 2, social proof. So, if there's just one guy wearing a dhoti and kurta somewhere, people will look and go, whoa, that's a bit weird. No one else is dressing like that. What's going on? Okay, they might be curious, but then they will also have a feeling that, oh, that's one of those weird Hare Krishnas. There's not many of them. Every now and then one of them appears. No, but just imagine if a whole lot of Hare Krishnas, like it could be on Harinam with a whole group of Hare Krishnas, or if people start noticing Hare Krishnas walking around all the time, like if you live in a community where there are a lot of devotees, then the people start to notice, oh yeah, there's a devotee, there's a devotee. When you see something happening a lot, it makes you think that, oh, this is not so strange. This is, this is just a different group of people. It's quite normal. And this is, one of my original thoughts when I posted about this on Facebook Live a few days ago, is that if devotees all went out in dhoti and kurta, as far as possible, apart from the 3 times when it's not a good idea, people would start to take us more seriously as a movement, because they won't just think that, oh, there's just 1 or 2, but they'll start to notice that there's many of us. And because our clothes stand out, even if just a small group of devotees is doing it, it'll seem like we're everywhere, because they'll notice. Just like if people go down the road wearing jeans or a suit, no one will notice, because everyone does it. But if we're doing something a little unusual and somebody notices it 2, 3, 4 times, they'll think, the Hare Krishnas are everywhere. Whoa! So that's another reason, the combination of standing out and having enough devotees doing it. It means that people will take us more seriously. And when people feel that there's a lot of people doing something, that's when they start to consider, oh, if so many people are doing this, there must be something to it. I should check it out. So this is called social proof. Alright, so these are external reasons. I'm going to reorder the way I've written it here and save the best for last. Alright, so the next one is personal responsibility. So one devotee was commenting on the previous thread. I'm sorry, I forget who it was. Maybe it was Eugene, pretty sure. He was saying how he wears tilak on a regular basis, and sometimes he might just put it a bit thinly so it doesn't stand out so much, but still he does it as a practice. So that was really cool to hear. And he was saying that, why wouldn't you do it? And then he was saying that, well, maybe if you're up to nonsense, it could be embarrassing. Wait a minute, that sounds like an advantage to me. If you're doing something wrong and you're feeling embarrassed, that's a good feeling. You shouldn't, it means that you're realizing, oh, I shouldn't be doing this. Let's look at 2 situations. One, you're dressed like everyone else, and you're fitting in, and you're doing some nonsense. Nobody really cares that much. There's a guy doing something wrong. Now, what about if you're wearing tilak, dressed in a dhoti and kurta or a sari, and you're basically representing Prabhupada? Now you're doing something wrong. Now you have a responsibility, because you're representing the Hare Krishna movement and Prabhupada and Krishna, can you see the psychological benefit of wearing those clothes? Where you may have considered doing something inappropriate, when you're dressed and representing, you have to modify your behaviour, and this is positive. You know, just like a policeman, when he's off duty, he might do all kinds of kind of crazy things, but when he's wearing his uniform, he knows that, okay, I'm representing the police force. I have to behave in an appropriate, befitting manner. So the same with us. So the more that we represent Srila Prabhupada's movement and Krishna and the Hare Krishna movement as a whole, and we know that we are representing them, and keep it in our mind, okay, I'm dressed like this, I'm representing Prabhupada. Would Prabhupada be pleased with what I'm doing? You know, it's an extra social pressure that we're putting on ourselves in a positive way to behave in the best way possible. Alright, so that was personal responsibility. Number 4 is Agyata Sukriti. So just by seeing tilak, people get spiritual benefit, even without realizing it. So this is another reason why we should dress as a devotee. Another thing is that if we're dressing in Hare Krishna clothes and people recognize that, oh look, he's one of those Hare Krishna people, boom, they chanted the holy name, Namabas. If they're chanting it without offense, then they get benefit. Wow, this is an amazing thing. So this is, you know, a very powerful advantage. We can never underestimate the power of even one person just chanting the holy name. Just like in the case of Ajamal, he called out Krishna's name even unknowingly, and he was saved from the most hellish condition. So by dressing as a devotee in the Hare Krishna clothes, first of all, people are likely to say Hare Krishna when they see us. And secondly, just by seeing this tilak, there's great spiritual benefit that's beyond the mental conception. Alright, and now the final reason, which perhaps is the most important reason, it's a little bit related to personal responsibility, is that when we put on these Hare Krishna clothes, and in particular when we put on this tilak and mark our body in the different places, we're reminding ourselves about our life and our goals, and that we're reminding ourselves that we've dedicated this life to serving Krishna. And this is a very powerful thing. So this is something, all the other things that I spoke about are the benefits for other people, apart from social responsibility, that's also for us. But it's the benefits that we get when we go out in public dressed as a Hare Krishna. But there's benefits that even if we don't go out, we just stay in the temple and we dress in our Hare Krishna clothes. As soon as we put on the dhoti and the kurta, we're reminding ourselves, people don't normally dress like this. Why am I dressing like this? Because I want to be a devotee of Krishna. I want to develop love for Krishna. And I want to dedicate this body, mind, and soul to Krishna's service. So this is perhaps the most powerful reason why we wear Hare Krishna clothes, although all of the other reasons are very powerful as well in terms of preaching. But for our own consciousness, one of the articles that I posted on the Successful Vaishnavas page recently was talking about how to achieve our goals. And his point was that the key is not just to visualize what you want, like, you know, the law of attraction and the secret kind of makes out, but it's commitment. We've made a decision, and as Dave Maharaj was telling me the other day, you know, there's no plan B. As soon as you have a plan B, things can become difficult. You're looking for a way out. So as soon as we're committed, then how do we show our commitment? We make adjustments in our life. We get up earlier in the morning. Recently, Mahatma Prabhu was posting something. I really loved it. He was saying that if anyone has any problems, his first recommendation is get up early and chant early in the morning with good quality. And it's so true. And I know in one of the comments someone said, oh, which is better, to chant when you're sleepy or to get up later? So it's like creating this false dichotomy. No, it's not. It's not that, that's not a choice. The choice is, how can you get up early without being sleepy? How can you chant your rounds in the early morning hours without being sleepy? Mostly it means to go to bed earlier. Perhaps it means you need to have a nap. Or maybe you have to do something when you wake up to make you alert. But making these comments is like looking how we can avoid doing what needs to be done. But no, someone who's committed, they're like, okay, Prabhupada said to get up early, before 4. Prabhupada said to chant 16 rounds in the morning hours during Brahma Muhurta. How can I do it? But this is the monkey mind, always thinking, I'm sure there's a way I can find some excuse not to do it. How can I justify it? And another person will say, it's very difficult with my job. Does it have to be so early? Can we make it a little bit later? Again, commitment. Prabhupada has emphasized again and again getting up early. Then let's work out a way to do it. And I think most people are able to go to bed earlier. It's just a question of priorities and commitment. Alright, how did I get onto that? Commitment, yeah, so another commitment or another adjustment that we make is the clothes that we wear. So everything that we do, he particularly was talking about environment. Those are the words he used. So environment means the people that you're around, the things you listen to, the pictures that you have on your walls. And as devotees we know this is the principle of association. What you associate with, you become like that. So if we want to become a great devotee, then we have to, or if we want to become a pure devotee, we look to find devotees who are practicing Krishna consciousness and that inspire us. We put pictures on the wall of Krishna, Krishna's pastimes, and we put on tilak and wear Hare Krishna clothes, because that also is a commitment that we've made to ourselves to adjust our environment to remind us what we're doing, how we're here to serve Krishna. So let me just summarize at the end here the 3 reasons that I have why we may choose not to wear a dhoti in kurta or Hare Krishna clothes is safety. If we're in a country or a place that devotees might be persecuted if they're dressed like Hare Krishnas, then it makes sense not to dress in that way. Number 2, for rapport, it's possible that depending on the situation, if we dress in a similar way to other people, they might find it easier to relate to us. There's a valid point. Number 3, socially appropriate. Sometimes we have to adjust the way we dress so that it doesn't disturb other people, and therefore they're able to listen to us and take us more seriously. There's a saying, you should eat according to your own taste and dress according to the taste of others. Alright, so those are 3 reasons why we may choose not to wear Hare Krishna clothes. And here are 5 reasons why we could. 5 good reasons to wear Hare Krishna clothes. 1, curiosity. When you're dressing and looking different to other people, they will notice you and become curious. Number 2, social proof. If enough devotees start dressing in their Hare Krishna clothes, they'll still be standing out. But if enough people notice us, they'll think that we're everywhere. And when people think that everybody's doing something, they start to take it seriously and they wonder, am I missing out on something? I should find out more. So this is social proof. People will take us more seriously when they notice more of us, as opposed to just noticing 1 or 2. Alright, next. Agyata Sukriti. This is the principle that if someone sees a Hare Krishna in their Hare Krishna clothes, they'll often say, Hare Krishna, which is naturally, chanting the holy name is great spiritual benefit. And just by seeing the tilak, even without understanding it, they get spiritual benefit. Next is personal responsibility. If we are dressed as Hare Krishnas, and it'll make us feel more aware of what we're doing and help us to behave in the most appropriate way, because we know that we're being watched and we're representing the Krishna consciousness movement in Srila Prabhupada. And then finally, personal identity. Wearing Hare Krishna clothes and wearing tilak is a way that we adjust our environment to remind us about our goal of devoting our life, our mind, body and soul to serving Krishna. So when we're getting dressed, when we're putting on our tilak, it's just another way that we remind ourselves. When we look in the mirror, it's another reminder that I'm dressing in a way that's different from everybody else because I've made a commitment. And I'm wearing these clothes to help remind me of my commitment to serving Krishna and ultimately to make my life successful and become a servant of the servant of the servant of the greatest devotees. So, those are my three reasons why you might choose not to wear Hare Krishna clothes, and my 5 reasons why wearing Hare Krishna clothes can be good. So use your discrimination, when to apply, which list, and make your life successful. Hare Krishna.